know what I'm coming to realize now, the older I get? Judgment is very hard. It's hard even when you were the one that did the thing wrong. It's hard to hear that, oh, I was wrong in what I did, or it's hard to take that in and even like offer an apology or probably change your stance. And I think the part of this is because we don't know how to manage our conflict effectively, okay? So this lesson is going to be on conflict management. And when we think about conflict management, you typically think of arguing with somebody or a disagreement with someone or going back and forth and not coming to some type of consensus about whatever topic you're on that you're disagreeing about, okay? So when you think about conflict resolution, the solution to it is actually quite simple. One is active listening. And two is learning how to express your emotions effectively, okay? That's the main 2 points with conflict resolution, but we're gonna break it down further in this video. Now, when you're in a heated discussion or maybe just you disagree with someone, it's important to give the person the floor. Allow the person to speak, to say their truth, to get what they need to get out. So you need to be active in your listening skills. So you sit there and you hear the person out entirely. Now, it's very hard to do because if the person you're talking to is talking at you and talking about you in a negative way, you're naturally going to want to snap back and respond. But the easiest thing to do, because the more you respond in that moment, the less that person gets to make their point, the longer the argument goes on. So it continues to cycle. So allow the person to say what they have to say to you, okay? And a lot of times you don't respond back, you don't fire back. The person's argument dies down because they're feeding on your emotions. They're trying to get you to react to what they're saying because they're in a heightened state and they don't know how to appropriately work through those emotions without making it argumentative, okay? Now, we talked about the limbic system and how the limbic system, that's the part of the brain is in the back, and that's the emotional brain. So the emotional brain is not a rational brain. The prefrontal cortex here is offline, and you're totally in your emotions, okay? So you're reactive, you're wanting to argue, you're heightened in your emotions, and if you're arguing, it's typically a negative emotion, all right? So in order to listen to the person in their entirety, you're going to have to turn that voice off in your head that's wanting to speak back, that's wanting to defend your position, they want to say, yes, but this is this. You have to turn it off. Let the person get it out. And that's going to be a very hard task for you, but that's what I'm tasking you with. I want you to try this a couple of times, okay? And then once they complete, you ask them, do you feel like you said everything you needed to say? And if they say yes, I got it off my chest, that's how I feel. It's okay. Is it okay if I respond back? But before I respond back, I just want to make sure I got what you said. So what it sounds like is that you're really concerned about, and you state the main point in their argument. So you kind of summarize and state the main thing they were upset about, okay? And then you ask, is that right? They say, yeah, because you don't do this, you don't do that. Okay. The next thing is you can say, it also sounds like what's important to you is if this, that, and this happen, if A, B, and C happens. And they'd be like, yeah, that is it. Okay. So even though they came at you with a spiel, they probably came with a 5-minute lecture about what you didn't do right, why it's wrong, and blah, 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 blah. So instead of you engaging in that back and forth, trying to explain yourself, yes, but, you know what I'm saying? No, that's not what I meant when I said this. Let them say it. Let them feel complete. And then you voice back in your active listening, with your active listening skills. It sounds like this is what's occurring, and this is what's important to you. So you have to just, you decide to listen by turning your voice off in your head. And then when you're using your best listening skills, you're reflecting back what they said. This helps them to process what they actually said. Because now we talk, we're not processing. You know what I'm saying? We're expressing emotion, but it's not fully processed until we feel like the other person understood what was said. That makes sense? All right. So once you acknowledge what they were concerned about, and you acknowledge what's important to them, you acknowledge their feelings. You say, well, I can see how that made you upset. especially if that's how you felt. If you felt that I was doing X, Y, and Z, and this was my purpose. And then now that I understand your point of view, this is what you were trying to do, and that's how you felt toward that, I can see the situation differently, okay? Because with situations, it's all about perceptions. So how one person perceives a situation will be completely different on how another person perceives it. So you have to take that into consideration, okay? All right, the next part is when a person is in an angered state or in a bad mood, instead of just like, oh, I don't feel like dealing with this person, they got an attitude, they snappy, blah, 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 blah. You got to consider what's going on in that person's life. The person can have a lot of stress going on behind the scene that you don't know, but you just see in the tip of that. Like if you think about the iceberg, and you just see the tip of the iceberg. So you might be seeing the anger and the frustration, but below the water is the hurt, the hardship that they're going through, the frustration that they're enduring, things like that. So you're only seeing the anger, the frustration, and it's being probably vocalized probably towards you. A lot of times people have misdirected anger, but if we can get calm, centered within ourselves, and try to see beyond what the current reality is showing us, and see beyond and see what's behind that person, deep down within or behind what they're saying and what they're doing, we can get to the root of the problem. We can show effective communication skill. We can do some conflict resolution, which is basically solving a problem. Okay. So what you have to ask yourself in general with situations like this, do I want to solve this problem or do I want to engage in this argument? You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you might want to engage in an argument. You don't know, but just know that argument engaging, you're not going to get anywhere with it. But if you want to solve the problem, this is what you do. You ask yourself, what could possibly be going on in their world? What else can be going on with this person that's making them so upset? So in a way to do that, you can ask a question. You'd be like, so how's your day today? I mean, besides what we're talking about now, anything significant that happened in your day? And just see what comes up. You might get a lot from that, okay? Then you can ask, well, you really ask yourself, what is it that's important to them at this time? Like, what is it that they're needing from me? Are they needing me to encourage them, to validate them, just to listen? What do they need from me? So that's how you kind of got to use your intuitive abilities to kind of figure that out. And you can do that by asking questions, like ask them how their day was. Like, what happened after you went to work today? Anything significant happened at work? How's your kids doing? How's your mom doing? Ask what's going on. Because a lot of times, backstory to most things, people struggle with a lot of different things. It's financial stress, health issues, family member issues, things like that. So that's going to help you intuit what's important to them at this time, as far as like, what is it that they need from me? Encouragement, a listening ear, somebody to throw some stuff off of, you know what I'm saying? That type thing. And then you ask, when you were talking to the person, am I listening, trying to understand what's really going on with them? Or am I listening to try to defend something? So most times, like you said, if it's a conflict resolution situation, the person is arguing, talking at you. And so you just need to be quiet and listen. You just take that pause and let them say whatever it is they want to say. And a lot of times you're on the phone when it's happening, the person might say, you still there? If you're not responding, be like, yes, I'm here. I'm listening. Go ahead. And just let them say it. Let them get it off their chest. Not feeding their fire. Let them get it all out. Okay? But as they get it out, you realize, I'm just listening, trying to understand what's really behind this frustration, what's really behind this anger. Because they can't possibly be mad at me because I forgot to fill the water jug up. Or, you know what I'm saying? It'd be a simple thing that they're arguing about, but it's something more that's behind that. So the water jug thing, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. This is what's really going on. What's really going on is not the tip, but the anger and frustration. What we see is at the bottom of the iceberg, beneath the water, the hurt and frustration from other situations that's been compiling on top of this, and now they're like blowing up. Okay? So you just let them talk, and then you make sure that they complete it. And then you can then focus on the emotion aspect of it. Okay. So the goal is to try to heal the emotions that you feel instead of just expressing emotions. Okay. So we want to do that with ourselves, and possibly, if we can, help somebody else. So to heal emotions, you have to feel the emotion first. So the person arguing with you, going back and forth with you, yelling at you, they feeling emotions and they're coming out and they're expressing them. So they feeling and expressing their emotions, okay? And then you have to realize that emotions, feelings is energy within us. So it's something that needs to be expressed, something that needs to come out, because if it doesn't come out or if it's not expressed, then it's dormant there. We end up suppressing it and it's going to come out eventually. And normally that comes out in terms of anger, resentment, blame, disappointment, sadness. And that's when our limbic system, the back part of the brain, is activated. And that's what's responsible with how we feel. And it's a neurobiological symptom, okay? Is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's not logical. It's based on our feelings. But the reason why a lot of emotions are so erratic and it seems like wild and crazy is because we're a society where we don't focus on the emotional aspect. We don't focus on processing emotions, okay? So the hardest thing about feelings is that they're easy to think about, but it's hard to express. And that's because we're taught not to talk about our anger or talk about our insecurities or talk about our sadness or talk about our frustration. But the fact that the feelings are within us and this energy, they're still there. It's still like boiling up. So what are we going to do about it? We're going to get into an argument with somebody so we can let out that steam, that frustration that's within us, because I can't talk about this because I'll be considered weak if I talk about how it hurt my feelings when I did that. So it's easier for me to say, I'm angry at you because you did this. It's easier to blame, okay? But once the feelings come out, it's a sort of relief that we experience. We got what we were feeling off our chest by expressing them. We may not have expressed them in the most healthiest format, but we said what we said, it felt good, and we let it out, okay? Now take a breath. You know what I'm saying? And then applaud yourself. Okay, I said what I said. I let it out. And then if you're on the receiving end of the person letting the emotion out, you take a breath and applaud yourself for being an active listener, reflecting back what they said, trying to understand what was important to them. You know what I'm saying? It sounds like this is what's going on. It sounds like this is what's important to you. So it seems like, so I can understand why you feel this way as a result of that. You acknowledge them. So that gave them, that almost was like a healing session for them. They expressed something and it was said, it was understood, you reciprocated it, so they know you understood. You apologize for how they perceived your reaction, because now you're explaining, what you were trying to get at. You know what I'm saying? And you see things clearly. So even though we have different perspectives, so alternative views of seeing things, I can understand it from your perspective now that you express how you felt and what you were trying to accomplish with that, and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So it's reciprocity, because that's what we're looking for in a relationship and with conflict resolution. Okay? So there we go. This is first lesson on conflict resolution. Until next time.